Welcome to the Culture Cast. This is our third official Culture Cast, and we are a cast of clowns. We have a new member, as you can see over here. You know, the prospector himself, Diego Escobar.
Not related to Pablo.
Not yet. And then we got Danny Vargas.
Dirty Dan. And
the man, Luis Leiva. I always thought his name was Leiva, but until he said it.
Leiva Tip, because you're mine.
Leiva Tip.
Leiva Tip. And I'm Paul. And
just Paul.
You know, we're new at this podcasting, but I think we're getting a little bit better at it. Hopefully, we start having some followers more than just ourselves listen to it. We're just doing this so we can listen to it ourselves. So. If there are people out there, at least, say something, like us, something,
We're doing this for you guys.
Yeah, seriously. We're just putting it out in the universe. But yeah, we talked about last week, we talked about some really interesting topics, and we left off with how to get into investing. And we have some pros here, and, we're going to get some good information today. So Lou, what's the first step? You want to be an investor, you want to start investing into real estate. What do you need to do? Tell us.
First thing you need to do when investing in real estate, I would strongly suggest that you educate yourself as much as possible. I cannot stress that enough because I'm still learning, and I'm probably double digits of years into this, and I'm still learning all the time. So for your first deal, educate yourself as much as possible because it will help eliminate a lot of fear. And when you have fear, you'll never pull the trigger. So you really need to figure out what it is that you want to do and specialize in, because there's a lot of different facets of investing. There's ways you can get involved with no money out of pocket. It takes more running around, it takes a lot of work on your part, but your return is infinite. So, and initially you might want to start with that. There's several ways that you can get into something like that. I'll elaborate on a few, and I'm sure that you guys can chime in at any point. But one of the most famous ones is wholesaling. Wholesaling is a way that you can get into real estate investing without much out of pocket, but you do have to do a lot of things. You have to find someone who has inventory that they're having trouble moving. So if I find, John Smith, who's a contractor, and he's having trouble selling his house, I'll approach John and say, John, how much would you like for your house? Great, okay, well, I'll find you someone for your house. And then you make something in between. Now, it's not as much as John's making, but John has a lot of money in. He's got a ton of money in. So you're actually making more money than John, but you have to run around and you have to advertise, you have to market, you have to try to do what John can't do because John's out there flipping houses and he's out there banging hammers. So, you have to do all the legwork when it comes to marketing. That's one way you can get in it. The other way you can get in it is simply just getting your real estate license and becoming a real estate agent. People may not think about being a real estate agent as being an investor, but you're investing your time and in return you're getting a commission. So initially that'll do two things. It'll get you your education and it'll also put some money in your pocket. Some people who have jobs that may not work for them, but it's definitely another way for them to get in the door. I'm not sure if either one of you guys have any suggestions or you guys have any comments on that, but I think that that's a good way for people to initially start. I mean, there's ways once you become an investor, once you have money.
Yeah, money's the key though, right? So I mean, you got to have a little bit of money saved up to get started.
You do.
And how much money would you need to start?
Okay, so that's a good question. When Diego started as an investor relatively short time ago, he partnered up with someone who already knew what they were doing, and he did a lot of the legwork. And what he did was he found the property. So he would go out and find distressed properties. When you can find distressed properties, there is an abundance of people who will team up with you. The money will team up with you if you bring the property to the table. Mm-hmm. So I'll let him explain how he did it when he started investing.
At the time I didn't have much money to invest. Like you said, you need some money. But I didn't have any money, so what I did is, like Lou said, I teamed up with a person that had the money, but so what I would do is I would bring the properties to him, and like he said, there's a lot of people out there that they have some money save up, or they have savings, but they don't really know what to do with that money. As you know, real estate is a great way to make money. So what I would do is I would find properties for this person, and then we would team up, and we'll flip the properties like that. That's how I started. I didn't have any money. I had a little bit of knowledge, but that's how I started investing in real estate.
So it is possible to become a real estate investor without a dime.
Without any money. All you need is the ambition to do it. Like Diego said, I mean, like it wasn't easy for him. It wasn't like he picked up the phone or knocked on the first door and it was like, yeah, sell my house. It took a lot of time and trials and a lot of rejection. But if you want something bad enough, you'll get it. Now, once you've done this for a while and you can build up some money that way and you don't need a partner anymore, then what you need to start looking for is a financial partner, like a hard money lender, a private lender, someone who has money parked in their IRA, who can't do anything with it, who can lend you the money for a fixed return. There's a lot of money out there, but you got to get creative, and you you also have to forget about being scared to ask, because if you don't ask, a lot of people don't know that you need it. So, for instance, if a lot of people out there may have an aunt or an uncle, a grandmother, or, cousin, someone who has like all this money in their 401k and they're literally not making enough to even keep up with inflation. If you explain to them that there's ways of putting that money to work for them and make more money with their money than just letting it sit there, or if you go to networking events and you start to talk to investors, hard money lenders, you'll find ways of working with them too with little money out of pocket. But if you really want to be an investor, you have to think about what you want to buy. If you want to start buying single-family homes, you have to figure out how much do these single-family homes usually cost. If they cost about $100,000, then you want a budget that you need at least 20% down, plus your closing costs, plus you need money to repair the home initially. So that may equate to $20,000 for down payment, another $10,000 for closing costs, and another maybe $10,000 for the first initial construction phase. So that equates to at least $40,000. So if you want a hard number as an investor, you want at least $40,000 to get your foot in the door, and you're going to need, like Diego said, carrying costs. Carrying costs will kill a lot of people. So make sure that you always consistently still have money coming in, and you don't spend the last of your money, and then like that's it, that's all I got. I can't make my mortgage payments monthly, because you will have overhead. So keep that in mind as well.
So Lou, to the new investor, explain two things: hard money and carrying costs. So hard money is not cash; it's money that you're getting from a bank.
Sure.
And the carrying cost is almost like an interest rate that the bank is charging you.
Yeah.
And that's two things that people that you're getting into investing. You should really know those terms.
You should. You should know what your projected construction time frame will be, because during that time you're going to have the house empty and people will be in there working. So you're not going to be collecting any rent from there if that's your intention. If you're thinking about flipping it, then you got to see how long is it going to take me not only to build out, but also to sell the house. And what happens if your buyer falls out? You're going to need to get another buyer. So you always need to think worst case scenario and say, okay, well, my mortgage payment every month on this house with a hard money loan, that's just another name for a private mortgage with a higher interest, maybe 6 months. So take 6 months of the mortgage payment and add that to whatever you're going to purchase the place for, so you know that at the end of the day you'll still be profitable. You got to think that way, because nothing's ever guaranteed.
No, and working with real estate agents is key too. And I started in this business recently, and I have clients, and I'm always looking for houses for them. And one of the things too, getting into investing is knowing what comps are.
Yeah.
And that's really big, because you could go buy a house for $100,000 and you could put $100,000 into it, right? And now you're at $200 plus your closing costs and all that other carrying costs.
Yeah.
And what if the house is only worth $190 completely redone? You have to know those numbers too. And working with agents, they do that homework for you, and get that sorted out.
I think that's every investor's biggest fear, is that not knowing the real comps. Diego has spent many years doing BPOs. For those who don't know, that's basically a miniature appraisal. So Diego, when he sends in a report, or when he used to send in a report, like the management company would always come back to him and want explanations and want to know. So like he would really have to know what he was looking at. So I'll let him elaborate on that, because the comps are the most important thing.
Yeah, they're key. Because what happens is, if you're flipping a property, sometimes your profit it's tight. So you gotta make sure that you do your numbers right at the beginning before you purchase the property, because you gotta make sure that those comps make sense and they're similar to the property that you're buying. Because if you're not, then at the time when you put it on the market, that property is just going to be sitting there. So what basically we do is, when we look for comps, we look for properties similar to the property, the subject, that had sold within 6 months, and they basically have the same square footage, same condition, same room count, and of course they're in the same area. So that, with that being said, that's how you get into a price for that subject property based on comps.
Yeah, and comp sense, for the new, it's comparable. So you're really just comparing what property sold to the property that you have, so that you can make sure that it's equal. And that that's one of the things that is really, really important, and a lot of my investors are always looking for. Show me the comps, and I want to get into this. So that's another big thing. Is there anything else? Any tips to a new investor? When looking for a property, like stay away from a complete rehab. Something that's easy. We have a gauge on our website that tells you
oil tanks.
Yeah, oil tanks are another big things too.
Sure. I mean, there's nothing really to stay away from, because everything will sell at the right price. I think the only thing that new investors should stay away from would be flood areas and, like Diego mentioned earlier, contaminated properties, because with a contaminated property, you don't know the extent of that contamination. If it's your first deal, like, you don't want to walk into that as your first deal. Like, guys have been doing it for a long time, like myself or Diego, we'll buy houses that are contaminated, tanks in the ground, don't care, because we know that we have outs, and we know that we can get it taken care of for a certain amount of money. But for a person who's doing it for the first time, it could be very nerve-wracking. So I would say stay away from anything with a tank, stay away from anything in a flood zone, unless you're buying down a shore on the water, that's different. But stay away from those things, because you can't change those external factors. You can do a lot of things to the home and inside to make it look right at the right price, but these other things, they're out of your control. So I would say that be careful with. I mean, depending where you're buying, it could be wetlands, it could be a lot of different things. So make sure your extenuating circumstances outside the house are okay, and then everything else inside could be fixed. So I would say look for those things first before pulling the trigger on something.
Yeah, overall, I mean, I guess the key would be do your homework, and work with your agent, or work with your, yourself, and really do your homework and study. And, a lot of people don't know about USTs, which is an underground storage tank. I used to work in that business, and, houses, used to have oil tanks buried in the ground, and those oil tanks weren't really made to last more than 50 years, they weren't supposed to last forever. And obviously some of these houses, that are pretty old, those tanks start wearing out, and they start, holes start going in them, and they start leaking into the ground. So then when they leak into the ground, the soil gets contaminated, the water gets contaminated, and it could be a huge cleanup. So it's education is the key, I would say, for new investors. Anything else on that subject?
How would I know? How can I find out if there is contamination or an oil tank that I
Good question.
need to be aware of?
Well, no, tank sweeps are one thing, but
you can take it, man. You're the expert in oil tanks. Let the audience know, how they can find out.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways to do that. In the industry I was in, we would do testing, we would do soil borings, around the tank, down into the soil. Go below the tank and see if there was anything showing up. You send it out to a laboratory. There's a ton of different ways. Just to see if there's a tank in the ground, you could do a tank sweep, which would be almost like a metal detector, and see if anything shows up. There's also GPR, which is ground penetrating radar. It bounces signals out and it sends it back up, and you can see if there's anything in the ground. But sometimes you can find an old car buried. New Jersey is especially New Jersey is one of those places that you can find things buried in the ground that might be similar to a tank, which you'd have to probably dig it up. But the best suggestion would be is if you have a tank, and remove it, and dig down and make sure you get everything out and get a clean an NFA letter, which is no further action, something like that. But there's plenty of tank people out there. Don't be afraid of tanks. But like Lou said, that's probably not the best to get into with your first one, because you don't know what cost you're going to incur. So it could wind up being a huge bill, and then you're not going to make any profit. So that's for the more novice experts who know how to handle it, have guys that do the work, and stuff like that. But
what's the average cost of that for removing a tank and having a sweep?
That, I mean, I don't do, I never did sweeps before. Like, you know, we did more of the remediation. But I can tell you one thing, I've had remediations cost up to $1 million. So, you know, it really depends on, you know, the house and how long the tank was there. We had a situation where the client had a leak in the tank, and they, you know, just kept filling it up. And they were like, oh, you know, I don't know why, you know, it goes so fast, and they were just like constantly getting like refills and refills, and there was a hole, you know, the size of, you know, a fist, and it just kept dumping into the ground. Wow. And you know, tank insurance is another thing too that homeowners could get to protect themselves on that, because once you get past a certain point, you know, it's going to be worth more than your house.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Lou, so in your experience, like a tank sweep, you know, with your investor, have you done anything?
Yeah, tank sweeps are, especially if you build a relationship with a company, they'll go out there on the same day and sweep the place for anywhere between $200 to $250. It's not a huge expense, but you should definitely, you know, spend a little money to avoid spending a lot of money later on. You know, it just makes sense. It's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, when I bought my house, actually, because I knew the situation with USTs, I was out there with a probe and like poking in the ground, and I had a metal detector. I went through the whole property myself, like nervous, like, and you know, I had gas, you know, but it's just a part of the game, you know what I mean? And especially in New Jersey, it's just, you know, it's just what happens. So, I mean, if you guys have any more questions, you know, related to real estate, you know, hopefully next week we can get into a new topic. But I guess we'll move on now to some of the more recent stuff going on. Lou's a big fan of Tesla. If you change the L to a T, that's my name, so, you know, I'm a big fan. But yeah, so tell us about the new thing that's going on with Tesla. You guys saw this in the news, right? With the roofs, the solar panels. Yeah.
So I guess the wave of the future now is obviously the electric car or the hybrid cars, and as you know, Tesla is the biggest probably proponent right now in that space. But the other company that Elon Musk sits on the board of is Solar City. And Solar City and Tesla are recently they merged. Well, Tesla bought out Solar City, and in an attempt to build what's called now the Tesla roofs for the house. And what it does is it's basically a shingle for your home that is very aesthetically pleasing, because now when you get solar panels on your house, it won't look like a big monstrosity sitting on your home.
It's kind of ridiculous now. Yeah. If you see like some of these people's houses, like they have a beautiful multi-million-dollar house and they have these huge solar panels on top. Yeah. And I think this is going to change the game.
It's going to revolutionize everything. But the best part of the whole thing is that he's trying to get the cost of the shingle under what it would cost for a regular shingle in your house anyway. Wow. And they come with like a 30 or 50-year warranty, some like crazy warranty on these things. So it's really going to change the way that builders build out their homes now. That, you know, I guess if a company this large is going to bring these to market, I'm sure that there's going to be incentives again with the states, you know, to get solar energy on your homes. Some states have it. I know like California and Texas, Florida, I think they're big on these solar panel installations. But here in New Jersey, I know that they were here and then they were gone, and it's like, I think that now, once this comes into play, I think it could change everything. But think about it. If your home is powered by solar, right? Elon Musk is very smart. If your home is powered by solar with his solar panels, and the power that comes into your house then goes to his Powerwall, which is a huge battery inside the house that backs up basically all the reserve energy that your house is not using with the solar panel. So let's just say you use, I don't know, a couple kilowatts a day, and then you tend to have extra kilowatts that you can store in your battery, and any extra kilowatts after that you could sell back to the grid. So you can potentially make money on electricity. So, but now imagine that you drive his cars too. So now you're powering your cars with free electricity from the sun. You're powering your house with free electricity from the sun, and then you're still selling electricity back to the grid. So I think this guy is really revolutionary.
Yeah, dude, he's like changing the game. I mean, and the other thing too is, I mean, he could probably charge. You know, they can charge so much money for that, and the fact that they're trying to do that is awesome. That they're not being greedy.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a ton of companies out there. You know, like when a certain phone comes out, it's really expensive in the beginning, and they try to make a ton of money. You know, they're actually like helping, you know, people, and that's awesome. I mean,
it's crazy. They're trying to make it cheaper than a normal roof, and like you said, if someone else would take advantage of that situation. It's going to be as standard as putting in Now, you know, they use the hardy board on the siding of the homes now instead of using the vinyl siding. It's going to be the next evolution of homes, and they're going to use these. I can see it already. It's going to be pretty sick.
I wish I would have thought of that.
Yeah, I used to wonder why more people wouldn't get into solar panels. You know, I thought that's kind of like a no-brainer. You know, like
It's
why would you
expensive,
not?
I think, right? I mean, from what I've heard from people, it is kind of expensive to set it up in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why, you know, most people, and it looks like, you know, crap on top of your house. Like,
Yeah. It is still a little cost prohibitive, but now they've made programs where you don't have to pay for them, but you pay them back, you know, through a contract. But the problem is that a lot of people don't get stuck in those contracts because when you resell your home, they inherit that contract, and nobody wants to inherit someone else's contract, so it becomes an issue. But think about this now, right? How often do you change your phone? Like every 2 years? You know, even
Something like that.
Some people change it every year. The technology with solar panels is upgrading so quickly that why would somebody want to commit to a solar panel contract for, and I think they do them for like 30 years, I'll be honest with you.
20, 30 years.
Yeah, 20 or 30 years. So why would you want to commit to something that's going to be a 20 or 30 year old looking you know, piece of equipment on your roof when 2 years from now, 5 years from now, it could be totally obsolete.
Yeah.
So I think that's what got me to stay away from it all these years, because I'm a big fan of technology and I love, you know, solar, and I think it's great, but I just don't think that we're there yet where it can be a permanent fixture on my house.
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm always into like creating products, and I got into product development and patents and everything, and you know, I hate to give away good ideas, but I think like in the future, man, like I could see a whole house becoming a smart house, and you know, like the outside paneling of the house, you could change the colors, you know, like it could, you know, change from blue to yellow, you know, the next week, or depending on the season. And it, you know, eventually it will become cheap enough where you're going to see stuff like that, man, and you're going to see windows that, you know, react, you know, almost like screens from the inside. It's going to be sick stuff.
I'm sure somewhere somebody's working on something like that.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, you know, it's got to be out there. But you know, like as I'm thinking about this, as we're talking, I'm like, yeah, can you imagine like the panels on the house, like the siding, like, you know, being able to change colors, you know, or something very cheap? It'd be pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, that would be crazy. Yeah, smart houses. That's a new thing now. You know, Samron has this whole house program too. His Alexa, he tells it to turn on his coffee maker. To turn
Who's
on.
that?
Huh?
Sam.
Sam.
Oh, Sam.
He has the whole house wired to his Alexa, and it just controls everything from there. Really cool stuff, man. I like it. Now, on the topic of houses, I know Danny recently picked up a great article about these tiny houses that people are moving into.
Yeah, so I know after reading this article, tiny houses is not. It pretty much makes up 1% of the real estate market right now. You know, despite its popularity in social media and on TV, I know I'm a pretty big fan of tiny house hunters. I don't know if anyone else is. Yeah, I used to watch that all the time.
So do you have to be a little person to live in these houses? Or
You just have to be a special type of person because it is obviously not for everybody. I know some people have issues organizing their 2,000-3,000 square foot home. So I mean, you have less than 1,000 square feet. So I mean, that's
well, Lou's renting out 8 apartments in the basement. You know, if anybody knows, we have little tiny rooms for cold calling. So I think I'm going to live there.
But I mean, you know, they were just saying that these promote like a healthier living for people. You know, because it requires you to give up a lot of things that aren't, I guess, categorized as a necessity. You know, and they're making these like tiny home villages. Wow. So instead of being in a neighborhood with, you know, I guess 2,000-3,000 square foot homes, you're in like a little
box
community that it's all the same.
Like a little garden.
You're in a garden.
You're in a miniature village. They have miniature golf there. And
and your neighbors, the Keebler gnomes come out with it. But no, I mean, for me, it kind of makes sense because these tiny home villages, they promote more like community-based activities, like people getting together to plant fruits and vegetables and just interact with each other more instead of just pretending you don't have neighbors all around you. And when they come out, you might give an awkward wave and then just pretend, like they don't exist later on. But so
the modern day hippies.
pretty much, yeah. It's like I said, they're not for everybody, obviously, but I think that they're nice to look at. It's like it's like a big like Barbie home kind of, but
you can move it around too. It looks like there's wheels on it.
And you know what? That is another pro for it. If you are traveling, like you can actually take your house with you. So
yeah,
you just put it on the back of your car.
Yeah, a lot of them are on wheels.
Oh, really?
So I mean, and a lot of them too, they double as like a bunker. Mm-hmm. So in case of like a natural disaster, like your house is very well protected.
Wow.
Well,
so
Lim, if you're listening, I know you have the Deals and Heels. I'm trademarking Deals on Wheels. So that's my new thing. I'm gonna try to start selling these. But
imagine if you got home and like somebody stole my home. Somebody stole my house.
Your house is like driving down the street. No, but actually, if you think about it, like houses that were built in the baby boom era, like when they were really building houses, but that was like the 50s and 60s, right? Like there was a lot of houses being developed. And if you look at them now, like, when we try to sell these houses, a lot of those houses are pretty small. There's a lot of 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom that, are under 2,000 square feet, 1,500 square feet. And the reason was because people didn't have as much as we do now. Like, look at all the storage units that we have around here. It's everywhere you look, there's a storage unit. Why? Because people just consume things that they don't need.
Yeah, I know. I speak for my family. Like, if you open our garage, like there's gonna be things falling out because it's just people hoard so much junk and they don't even realize it until one day they open their garage and you can't even walk in there because it's just like to the roof, to the ceiling with.
Yeah, I mean, people build these things are called McMansions now, and it's like those people are not living in houses that are that anything what they need. Like it's 2,000-3,000 square feet bigger than what they need to survive, and this could be something that really could change society. I mean, I don't think everyone's going to go buy a tiny house, but let's say that there's people who want to give back and help people. Like instead of buying a $500,000 house, you could buy a tiny house and maybe buy a homeless person a house and and live just as good. I
actually can see potential for these tiny houses to be like a real estate investment in itself because how the prices for homes skyrocket every once in a while, and the mortgages on these tiny homes are like stupid low. So I mean, if you're like a first time home buyer and you're all by yourself, you don't have any kids, and you're pretty good at organizing, I think this would be perfect for them.
How much are these houses, by the way?
Depends? Yeah, it kind of just depends on the square footage and the area, and I guess how nicely it was built. I mean, they kind of range from like 100,000 to like $1 million. So
$1 million. Wow.
I better get 1 million tiny houses for $1 million. But what's funny is I saw in the news the other day, China, I think it was. They actually are so overpopulated, and they have such a crisis.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
They're like living in cages, and like a cage that's like 10 by 10 is like a ridiculous amount of money. And they have like a waiting list for public housing. It's really bad there. Yes, I mean, I guess when you think about it in America, we have it pretty good that we have these houses that we could live in, and there probably could be 200 Chinese people living in that house, like surviving, so it's pretty sad, how spoiled we are.
Oh no, definitely. So what else you got, Danny?
Tokyo's not in China. Just wanted to.
No, Tokyo's
Japan. We were talking about Japan. I wasn't sure.
Anyway. So yeah, I guess that's enough about tiny houses.
Let's talk about tiny people. Tell us about that lemonade stand, Dan.
Okay, so there was a tiny person that was, let me stop. There was a 5-year-old girl in the UK. This story kind of touched me really. And so she was running a lemonade stand with her father at a marketplace. And a couple hours in, she is approached by 4 officers and they give her a fine. It was like $150 fine for not having a trading license.
Yeah, you heard about that, yeah.
And so, her and her father just kind of packed their stuff up and left. But I guess the news spread and everyone was just appalled that
somebody would do this.
That this 5-year-old girl got her lemonade stand shut down. So whatever city she was in, the officials apologized to them and told them that they didn't have to pay that fine. And for me, it just kind of reminded me of another story where there was a lady in Texas and she was a widow. Like her husband had just died and she wasn't really working, so she's trying to figure out how she's gonna scrape together money to support her kids and herself and pay the bills, her house, everything. So she starts selling her cooking. So she was very well connected on Facebook. She was part of a lot of groups, she had a lot of friends, and she starts trying to market her cooking. And she was doing pretty good for a while until one client that she sold to for the very first time turned out to be an undercover cop, and he has her arrested for selling food without a food handler's license. Mm-hmm. And so now I think she ended up serving time. Wow. And I'm not really sure what happened to the kids, but I just think it's messed up that I understand that there's regulations and rules and laws to kind of protect everyone's health, because they don't want people getting sick. I don't know if that's the case for the lemonade stand. I think they were just trying to knock that little 5-year-old girl's hustle.
It's always probably some neighbor hating and doesn't like the attention, but these are little entrepreneurs. Let them learn, let them grow. I could see, there's a funny skit of some kid. He's actually older, but he looks like a kid on Saturday Night Live, and he has instead of lemonade, he's selling beer for 25 cents a cup.
Oh yeah. And he's cursing at everyone.
Yeah, he's yelling at people. But yeah, definitely, man. These kids, they're just trying to learn,
trying to hustle.
Responsibility and the government. So this is in England, you said, in London?
In the UK. Yeah.
The funny thing is, if she was giving away lemonade, it would have been fine, but the fact that she's probably charging 25 cents, it makes it a felony or a crime or whatever they call it.
Because I guess the government doesn't like competition.
I guess they don't.
Don't buy from her, buy from us.
I guess so. That is terrible, man. That's sick. But what's funny is that I believe that a lot of people are brainwashed to think that you shouldn't be out here teaching your kids how to do their own thing at an early age, and that's sad because when they grow up, they're gonna think that selling stuff person to person or door to door or however you teach your children at an early age is wrong, and that's what the police are actually instilling and doing, violating something like that. I'm actually shocked that the police would do that, and I think that it just goes to show how brainwashed they are. If I was a police officer and I saw that, I'd probably buy a cup of lemonade and I'd keep it moving. That's sad. I think that's the level, the extent that society has taken a lot of people. But
the true story is the girl was selling them for $100 a glass. So
that is crazy.
I'm glad they shut that little kid down. Extortion.
There was probably a run on lemonade, so she was probably scalping people.
Yeah, that's my son's actually here. So Alex, come here, buddy. We'll ask him what he thinks about this little girl if he wants to.
He's got chime in.
Come here. Tell us your thoughts on a lemonade stand. You want to open a lemonade stand with me?
Yeah.
Yeah? And maybe we could sell houses together? So, picture a kid like this, basically being told oh, you can't, set up a little stand and have some fun and make some money.
You get taken away in handcuffs. Terrible.
Alex, you want to set up a stand or what? Let me hear you say it. Maybe we'll hook you up with this girl.
No.
That's how we can sell lemonade together.
No parties.
Who likes to work alone.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed our session today with our guest and our panelist and Alex here now. Leave us a message on our comment section. Let us know what you want to hear about next week. We'll make it happen. We'll see you again next Friday. Thanks, guys. Take it easy. Enjoy your weekend.